I brought my tissue because I know I'm going to need it. So, thank you, Herbie. This is a wonderful honor. Well, you know that this is the 29th presentation of the Henwood Award, and I participated in 28 of these recognitions, counting this one. But of course, this one is the most special. I feel very honored to receive this award and to stand in the company of the men and women who've been recognized in the past. Now, much of my career has been wrapped up in NHA's history, so I'm going to take you on a little memory tour and talk a little bit about the organization. But as I was thinking about today and what I would say, I kind of started out with the whole idea of, how did I get here? You know, how did a young girl from a small town in Western New York with a bachelor's degree in Greek and Roman studies end up running a renewable energy trade association for nearly 30 years? I started out to become an archaeologist. We're far, far away from where I've ended up. And I say to the young professionals out there to pay attention, because there really is a lesson here. I think a lesson in being open to opportunities that come across your path. You'll never know where they're going to lead you. Now, never in my wildest imagination did I think I would run an association, let alone one in the energy field. But when I really took a step back and tried to think about how this happened, I think it comes down to a couple of things. Number one, I think it's serendipity. We heard that also in this morning's women's breakfast, how important it is when you meet different people at the right time in your life. I think the second thing is passion to do something meaningful. The third was a little old-fashioned Italian stubbornness and hard work. And finally, I think immersion into this amazing community of love, certainly dedication and passion for what you do, and caring. So, we had a slide here. Yes, that is me. Age 3. I remember when my mother took me to get this picture taken. The horses weren't real, they were stuffed. You would never see that today. My mother picked out a very calm-looking horse. I told her no. I said, I picked out this bucking bronco. And I told my mother that that's the horse I wanted my picture taken on. We fought. I dug in, we argued, and eventually I won. So I got that picture taken. So I realized then that stubbornness and persistence paid off. Now, my parents were first-generation Americans. Their parents never really learned to speak English. They stayed within their own cultures. They valued hard work and family, and they instilled that in their children and their grandchildren, and they certainly instilled that in me. And this is a man who taught me to cook. Some of you have had the advantage of what this man taught me. And whoever won the auction last night at the foundation, you're going to a treat. This is the man, as I said, who taught me very, very much. But he was very, very old country. He had strong old country views, and these are views that my father certainly eagerly adopted. So all our lives, even though we were Americans, we were always old country first. Fast forward to my teen years, and I had my first encounter with serendipity. Walking home from school, I literally ran into Bobby Kennedy. He was campaigning for the U.S. Senate. I got to spend the entire afternoon with him. He was incredibly charismatic. He talked certainly about his brother's legacy and the importance of making a difference, and I wanted in. I made a commitment that afternoon, right then and there, that I was going to Washington, D.C. So that's what brought me to Washington. I applied to GW, but as I said, we didn't really have a lot of money, and I applied for a scholarship, and I got a full tuition, room and board, everything covered, 4 years. I wouldn't have had to pay a penny. But then those old country views kicked in. My father refused to sign the acceptance papers. Now, why? Girls did not need an education. They become wives, they become mothers, and worse yet, I was going off to a big city totally unchaperoned. He said no. Well, that little girl in that bucking Bronco, she kind of took over at that point. And I said I made up my mind I was going anyway. So I did different jobs to pay my way. I was a cocktail waitress. I was a PBX telephone operator. You know that old Lily Tomlin thing? I did that. And finally, I think the job that probably had the most impact on my journey, I was a nanny. The man that I worked for was a Washington lobbyist. And yes, that whole concept of serendipity once it comes to play. He taught me much about the world of politics and Washington representation. He was a marvelous mentor to me. Now, after graduation, he helped me get my first job. It was a job working with the Washington office for Santa Clara County, California. I went on from there to local government associations, and from there to the American Public Power Association. I spent 17 years lobbying on all sorts of diverse policy issues, from tax to foreign policy, from regulatory reform to health care, all while escaping energy policy. I didn't care very much for energy issues. That is until I got to APPA. I was hired to co-manage a 42-organization coalition to preserve taxes and financing. I was only there 2 weeks before Marty Cantor came into my office and said, "We're making you an energy lobbyist today. Get up on the hill on this issue." So how did I end up here at NHA? Again, serendipity struck. Back then, NHA really didn't have a great reputation. APPA had sponsored the NHA annual conference and was scheduled to speak at the opening session. No one on the APPA staff wanted to do it. So what did we do? We agreed to draw straws. Literally, we drew straws. And I lost. So I ended up speaking before the NHA conference. And not long after delivering that speech, Carl Van Sant urged me to put my hat in the ring for the NHA executive director position. He was relentless. I think we all know Carl. Carl gets an idea in his head, it doesn't go away. He kept calling, until I finally did put my hat in the ring, and the rest is history. But there's still a lot more to this story. When I arrived, the organization was very young and in trouble. We were in debt, we couldn't pay rent, we were barely making payroll. Our total assets, one secretarial chair, 3 computers, one was very outdated, and 1 empty file cabinet. That is all we owned. We had a small corner in a law firm. We had no brand visibility, no logo, and no presence. And our reputation in town was hardly stellar. The FERC had told us to never grace their doors again. We were unwelcome. And the DOE pretty much felt the same way. Our reputation on the Hill was a bit better. At least they weren't angry with us. But they also felt we had no presence. We were not even a bleep on the radar screen, or so they said. EEI, not NHA, was a recognized voice of the hydropower industry then. We were bleeding members. We were about to lose our nonprofit status and our right to operate in DC. We had no organizational structure except for a set of bylaws, a hardworking board of directors, and 1 policy committee. Now, despite all of this, I must have been crazy, but I had a vision to turn this loosely knit organization into a true, highly professional, and well-respected trade association, one that represented the very best interests of all of its members. After all, I had spent years working for other associations, and I had mentored under some of the very, very best association executives. So how did we get from that NHA to this remarkable organization that NHA is today? And I can tell you the simple answer: it's because of all of you. It's your commitment that made a difference. It was everybody coming together to provide support to the organization. Wayne Elkins from Southern Company convinced the members to pay a special assessment that year and got us through the rest of that year. Lee Goodwin, then of Bellard Spar, convinced our landlord to give us a break on the rent so we didn't have to pay the rent. Don Clark, then of Wilkinson Barker, cajoled each of the FERC commissioners to at least meet with me and give me another chance. He dragged me all around FERC. And I tell you, you've never lived till Betsy Muller's dressed you up from one side and down the other. And we did that. We lived through that week of meeting the FERC commissioners. Roger Purdom of Chelan hosted me with the Northwest members and convinced them to stay in, and others followed suit. Together, we pulled the NHA out of its bleakest of times. Over the years, we faced other crises. Fragmentation as we cranked up for the class of '93. John Devine, he gave us Steve Padula for an entire year-long effort to develop a progressive licensing policy. Julie Kyle of Portland General at the time, John Soloway of NYPA at the time, and Jerry Sabatis of Niagara Mohawk. You guys all led the way toward that relicensing policy that's really made a difference for our industry. Now, Mike Murphy of TRC held us together when my dreams, an all-renewable coalition under one roof, fell apart, and we were on the verge of eviction from our joint headquarters. I called him the day after he took the helm at the presidency and said, guess what? The federal marshal is going to be throwing us out in a few days. Mike and I did a delicate dance to protect our assets that we had finally begun to build. We talked nightly, and he would always call at the end the call with, Linda, please do not let me be the last president of NHA. Well, each of these marvelous leaders are previous recipients of the Henwood Award, and I certainly stand in good company. Over the years, I've had great partners. I've served under 24 different presidents, though now we call them chairmen. Each brought their own strengths, their vision, and a huge commitment to the association, and I've learned much from them. Many of them are here. We had them seated in the front. Will you please stand up, all the past presidents of NHA? There's no way I could have ended up getting to where I am today without their support. I'm so grateful for their endless support, and so many of them I would say today are my best friends or closest, dearest friends. So thank you. Thank you for your friendship and your mentoring. So as I think about the past, we've had some difficult times, but we've survived. And I look at the association today, we sit on very solid ground. We are financially strong. We actually own more than that secretarial chair. We have a beautiful headquarters to go with it. Most important, we have a reputation on Capitol Hill of being one of the very, very best energy trade associations in this city. We have solid working relationships with FERC and DOE. We've expanded our programs beyond licensing issues and created NHA as a strong, one-stop shop, all-inclusive of the water power community with a growing membership base. And we are the recognized voice of the hydropower industry. My vision of a true and effective trade association has become real. I'm very proud of the organization NHA has become. And though you honor me here today, I certainly, as I said, don't stand here alone. No one is successful alone. It does take a village, and I'm thankful that my village has been all of you. Our success is the result of the untiring leadership on the part of the passionate and hardworking board, committees, and councils. It is because of the hard work of a very talented and dedicated staff, both past and present. They put their hearts and souls into their jobs, not just because I asked them to, but because they care. They are exceptional people. I am so deeply grateful for their contributions. They've become part of my own family. So this recognition is as much theirs as it is mine. Stand up, guys. You're over here. Thank you so much. I knew that part was going to get me. So NHA has been my family, and it has been the village that has embraced my own family. And I'm not going to run into a little bit of trouble because my daughters are here. My daughters have spent many an hour at my office. They put up with a lot over the years, the long hours, the missed birthdays, the absences, and the canceled vacations. I can't tell you how many NHA conference bags they've stuffed. I can also tell you, though, it wasn't their favorite job. There were perks, too, like one Uncle Donnie, Don Clark. took them to buy their first pair of high heels when I had said no. It was during a conference. We did our evening banquets in those days, so he took them shopping during the day, and they returned to the hotel in the evening wearing high heels, pretty much unable to walk in them, but very happy. Well, my daughters had managed, despite my absences, to become remarkable young women in their own right, and I am so very proud of them. And I must say I am very thankful. I'm thankful because if they had turned out badly, I think I would have felt very, very guilty. So thank you, girls. I started out by saying that serendipity, hard work, and a little old-fashioned Italian stubbornness or persistence played a large part in how I got here, not to mention that short straw. But what kept me here for nearly 3 decades? Well, I have to say it was a huge capacity of this marvelous industry to embrace one another, that sense of family, that we have one another's back, that we are indeed that village. And so I thank you, not solely for this recognition, but also I thank you for the privilege to be at the helm of your association, to represent this wonderful industry, to travel and to see your amazing projects, and to see firsthand the contributions that they are making. It has been a most remarkable part of my career in coming out and seeing everything that you do day in and day out in providing that wonderful clean energy. So you have given me an opportunity to wake up every morning and know that I've had a purpose, and that has and will continue to make a difference. Certainly, I remember back to the times when I met Bobby Kennedy and said, I want to make a contribution, I want to make a difference, I want to make a commitment, I want to make my life meaningful, I want to do something that's important. Thank you for giving me that opportunity. So in those early days, times were hard, and we questioned whether the association could survive, but today it stands on very, very solid ground. And tomorrow, well, I strongly believe that NHA's best days still lie ahead. This industry, as I said earlier in this program, in the opening program, that we stand at a crossroads, much like I did when I first arrived here. But the fact remains that hydro has never been more important. I believe in this association, and I believe in its leadership, and most important, I believe in the heart of its members, and all of you. And I know together you will lead NHA to something even bigger and better. So summing it all up, I'm proud to have been a part of NHA, to have been a part of this extraordinary village. I'm so deeply touched and thankful for this wonderful honor, and feel very, very blessed in accepting this award. Thinking back to that little girl on that bucking Bronco, well, it really has been one hell of a great ride. Thank you.